Welcome to Raising the Flipping Bar, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned real estate investors. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and I'm the CEO of Elevation. We're a real estate investment company based right here in Denver, Colorado. We'll dive into smart investment strategies, market insights, and essential tips for scaling your real estate ventures. Whether you're making your first investment or your 100th investment, this podcast is your blueprint for success in the ever-evolving world of real estate investing. Get ready to elevate your real estate game and begin your journey with me.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and I'm really excited because we have a rock star real estate agent. We've got a rock star team lead. We've got somebody who is just a phenomenal businesswoman in general. And we're going to talk a lot about luxury real estate. We're going to talk about what's going on kind of here at the midpoint within the 2024 Denver real estate market scene. So Tabitha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Cool. So what I normally like to do is ask something that is a fun fact or something random or something different that maybe you've never shared before or the audience would not peg for you. And I'll give you a little not tip, but insight into what other guests have said. So we've had some person who's been a professional poker player. We've had a person who was, in their terms, professional balloon blow up person in high school. Like that was his job. We've had a law enforcement officer. We've had people in the Secret Service. So not that it has to be there, but like it could be something super random. So give me a fun fact.
Not totally sure what someone might not know. Originally from Canada and have lived all over the US. Growing up, I never lived in a home for more than 2 years at a time. So maybe that's a good, not as cool as being Secret Service. But,
Well, that's okay. Me either.
But I still have time. I'm young.
No, I totally get it. We were talking before we got started that you've got some rowdy boys. I'm one of four and we were crazy. And every once in a while, I'll just apologize to my mom, like randomly. Everybody talks about work-life balance. Like, what does that mean to you? Or where does that sit with you? Yeah.
It is where you're at in that moment. So it's summertime right now. My boys are home. They're in camps. Every week looks so different. And day by day, we are surviving to thrive. So, I don't know that it has to be one or the other. I'm trying to take a lot of time out to be at the pool with them. My boys are 10 and 13 right now, and we're on a limited time clock. So I know I'm going to wake up and it will happen so quickly. I'm thinking about the fact that I have a teenager and it feels like I just brought him home from the hospital. And I remember the day that we brought him home, what he was wearing, and my husband and I looking at each other and saying, so what do we do? Yeah. And they are going to trust us with this. There's not a manual, there's not a book. And all of a sudden, fast forward, he's this crazy, rambunctious teenager who is full of life and energy. So the balance is trying to figure out what everybody needs and then consistently adjusting. Maybe that's a mom thing a little bit as well, but definitely being tuned into that, and no 2 weeks look the same for us.
Yeah. No, that's smart. I think you're right. I think moms deserve far more credit than dads, in my opinion, of juggling things. My wife, Ann, she owned her own business and now she's in the real estate business with us. But I call her the master of 27 minutes, meaning like moms can get so much done in such a short amount of time. And as, like dumb guys, I feel like we need to be more strategic and plan. And we're like, well, wait, we only have this much time. And moms get like 78 things done in that amount of time. And I think guys are just not good at that.
Totally agree. My husband needs a good solid 3 hours of morning routine before he's going to go anywhere. It's like down to the minute, and I know exactly what's going to happen and when I have to get out the door. But I am a perpetually like on time is early for me, and I know that goes against so many doctrines of, to be on time is to be early. I'm scooting in today was early. Traffic was amazing. But typically if we start at 9:00, I'm rolling in at 9:00. And my team knows this about me, that I tend to be just a couple minutes behind because I pack things in. I think that must be a mom thing. Yep. Maybe as well. But it is so fun in our house. I live with so many boys. I have 2 boy children. Obviously, I have a husband, and our dog is also a boy. So it's just, that's what I love. That's what we're used to.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. Professionally, you work for the Muscular Dystrophy Association right out of school and stuff. Like, was that the plan, or You tell me a little bit about that and then how you transitioned into real estate.
Absolutely not. It was the best, worst year of my life.
Oh, interesting.
And I went to school for marketing. So I always thought I would be in event planning. I loved the idea of coordinating and putting things together, which has served me really well in real estate and definitely as a team lead. But my first job out of college was working for MDA, which is a phenomenal organization. And the research that they do, the scientists, the people they serve, like so incredible. But what I thought was event planning was a little bit more, not a little bit, it was fully fundraising. Part of my job as a 22-year-old graduate was to help temp workers make a cold call for 6 hours a day. And imagine this seemingly very privileged, even though I did not grow up that way, person coming in at 22 years old, having to be a supervisor for people who were double my age, who had gone through life experiences that I had yet to even like wrap my head around.
Yeah.
And then trying to lead them through this really not so fun job day after day. So I got burnt out pretty quickly.
It taught me so many great lessons, though, and it propelled me into leaving that space and going into dance coaching full time. And then we started our family really quickly after we got married. So it was, like I said, the best, worst year of my life. It showed me exactly what I didn't want to do. I'm not meant to be in an office from 9 to 5 every day. I need, just like my kids need change. We don't necessarily have a day-to-day routine. I also thrive a little bit more on, I wouldn't say chaos, but just things fluctuating and like new experiences and being excited. So the monotony of cold calling was just simply not for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that's, I think, half the battle is, you're right, finding out what you don't like. That's okay. Some people take 10 years to do that, or they get locked in with the golden handcuffs or whatever. So no, good on you for just like a year of being rough, and then you're on to new things. That's awesome. Kind of tell us a little bit about the way that I like to ask this question is, there's probably a couple milestones in your real estate career. Tell us some of those milestones, and then it'll get us to kind of where we're at right now with how you got into real estate and where you're at.
So I was a stay-at-home parent for the first 5 years of my oldest son's life. My youngest was 2.5, and I simply realized that I needed to have something else for me. So I was still coaching dance. It was very part-time, and I was at a point where I knew that I was going to resent not taking advantage of really creating a career if I didn't start something soon. So I did a good amount of research. I narrowed it down to 2 fields, which seem very different, but end up actually being pretty much the same. So I was either going to go back to get my master's and then potentially a PhD in counseling so I could become a therapist. And I really, really had this idea that I wanted to coach and give therapy to adolescent girls, mostly the audience that I was coaching, that demographic, just watching, teenage girls go through that big change and having someone there for them.
So that was option A. Option B was getting my real estate license. In college, I was a real estate assistant for a couple of different companies. I helped college students. I took them around Boulder and helped them get leases. So I was this pretend realtor without having the license.
I liked it. Yeah.
And so that was option B. And I ultimately went with option B, but not because I felt some sort of super strong pull in that direction. It was cost effective. It is not difficult to get your real estate license, as we know, and the timeline was much shorter. So if I had gone with option A, it would have been a 10, 15-year track. And I thought to myself, exactly what you just said. What if I spend the next 10 years of my life and I realize that I hate this, or it's not right for me? Now I'm tens of thousands, maybe $100,000 in debt, and I don't have a choice. I don't have an option. So getting into real estate actually provided me with the most options. And I really started out just wanting to build something for myself and see where it took me. And fast forward 8 years later, or actually seven, because it was 2017, and I got my license 7 years later. Here we are.
Well, so you've helped hundreds of people buy and sell real estate. To your point, you're coming up on 8 years. Give us a little bit of kind of a dive into what is, if you could put a percentage on it, roughly, like how much are you working with buyers? How much are you working with sellers? Maybe when you started, and then where you're at right now of what your split might be.
Yeah, so I went on the traditional track. Just like most brand new agents, I was working with first time home buyers, would say 80% of the time or so. And then that started to escalate into referrals and second time purchases, a few sell buys. And this year, it's really interesting. This year and last year, I've actually hit a tipping point where I've had the opportunity to represent far more sellers than I have had buyers. So I've really only worked with 3 buyers in 2024. The rest have all been sellers, which 2-3 years ago would have been just a dream come true, right? Yes. Yeah. I just wake up every day on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
This year things have changed, but that's the beauty of real estate. It's ever changing. The market's ever changing. We are constantly entering into some sort of new era. Things are shifting. We're about to see a really big shift here in a month from now with the way that business is done. And so yeah, I would say though, like overall, it tends to be a balance. It just depends year to year. I still love those first time buyers. They're so excited. It is really fun for me to educate and to differentiate what their transaction can look like, what their experience can look like versus people who work with first time buyers and they just kind of churn and burn. Not my style. So that's definitely helped me to build this career over almost a decade.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and then you've moved into the luxury space. Tell me a little bit about when you started to do that. And then that's kind of part of your main focus now as well, right?
I have always had just a penchant for beautiful properties. I mean, who doesn't love the idea of walking in, watching shows like Million Dollar Listing, and now I just binge watched Ryan Serhant's Owning Manhattan. I mean, it's like a very fun thing to think about. But then the thing that got me into luxury real estate wasn't even necessarily the idea that the houses were beautiful, but it was this time for me to challenge myself with a different type of client. And working with someone in the luxury space can be very different than working with a first-time buyer. And it has not necessarily anything to do with price point, but so much more expectation and the type of lifestyle that someone in that luxury space might be living as far as what their discipline level is looking like, what they want to see day to day, how they run their lives. And that really propelled me into wanting to work in luxury and the attention to detail that's in luxury. The design elements, the appliance packages, I mean, very specific details that you don't necessarily need to know and don't exist when you're working in a subdivision where you've got, 10 different track home models. So not that one is better or worse, it's just they're so different, and it's been a fun way to educate myself in a new space.
So we're going to take a quick break and tell you about the next Elevation Academy. If you're looking to dive deep into real estate investing, this is definitely the event for you. Our academy features over a 100-step process to help you navigate every single thing from market analysis all the way down to every aspect of project management. So this is tailored for both beginners and seasoned investors. And our one-day intensive training will equip you with the strategies and insights needed to elevate your real estate investing game. Spots are definitely limited, so click on the link below in the show notes to sign up and transform your approach to real estate investing. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
How would you say that the luxury market has evolved over the last couple of years in Metro Denver?
Wow. So when I first started, luxury was anything over $650,000 to $700,000 in the suburb.
Yeah.
And to me, I would define luxury real estate as something that's over $1 million in the suburbs and closer to $2 million in just the city of Denver, as well as certain neighborhoods. So you've got obviously your Cherry Hills, and then in Denver specifically, there are certain neighborhoods where you've seen just such an involvement. You're in this game. You just finished a flip in Wash Park and Alto Sloan Lake. And the differences in what is considered luxury and what those buyers are looking for in those two neighborhoods are so different. And that has been really fun to watch evolve over the last 5 to 8 years as we're seeing different zoning, as more and more money has been brought into the city, whether it's investors, people moving in during the pandemic and coming in from different coasts with a lot more money, a lot of that cash. It has so much more to do with location and level of finishes and who's designed the property. It's a lot more status now than it ever was before. I don't know if you agree or if you have a different take on it with all of your expertise.
Yeah, I would say something that we really learned, and thank you for bringing that up, is we've got these two projects we just finished, one in Wash Park and one in Sloan's Lake. And a comment that I never thought that I would hear is our Sloan's Lake property was literally 4 homes off the lake. And from your kitchen, you looked at the lake while you were doing your dishes. And then off your front door, you looked at the mountains. Beautiful house. We gutted it. We did everything. And it was a cool kind of like mid-century. And it was a lot bigger than most of the homes in the area. So we thought, okay, great. If we run comps based on similar homes, but they were all smaller and we priced it the same and it was super, super well done and permitted and all that, it should fly off the shelf. We had tons of activity. We had 42 showings in our first month and we didn't get one single offer. And we had a bunch of people that were who we thought was our avatar of wealthy family, that either it was the kids, like 20-year-olds first house, or even a couple people where their kids were going to Regis University and they were going to kind of have it as an apartment in the basement because it had 2 kitchens. And we had multiple people say, it's too big. And I was like, wait a minute, it's too big. What the hell are we talking about? It's the same price. And then we saw that a house that was one of our competitors, and it was about $100,000 less. So maybe price played a little bit of a factor. Those houses went under contract and closed, and we lost out on like 5 deals. And I never would have thought that I saw that. So to your point, like luxury is so, I don't want to say fickle, but like specific.
Yeah, super, super specific.
Even though you think you have all the data in front of you, we still are learning.
And that's been so fun to also be able to educate a seller. I've got a listing right now in the beautiful neighborhood of Lowhigh. I mean, it is right in the middle of the action. It is walkable to legitimately everything. Little Man, Avanti. I mean, you are right there, and it's low maintenance. And the feedback that we have received consistently is that it is a little bit on the large side for someone. And then second, a lot of the people in that neighborhood who are able to spend the amount of money that this home is on the market for want a scrape.
They want, yes, they want that modern vibe, huge glass windows, and it is a lifestyle. And I have talked to my sellers and educated them, hey, if we could pick your house up and we could put this on South Franklin Street, we're in Wash Park, if we're in Platt Park, then we're in another price point and this is not going to last. But the unique characteristics of that property are allowing it to sit on the market for a little bit longer in the neighborhood that it is located in. So it's a very different style of market and style of approach. And that's what excites me about it, because every property is so unique and you have to consistently be educating yourself on what's going to make the difference.
Especially in our world with flips, we really, really made sure not to cut any corners. We even probably ate an extra 2 weeks, which for me at that, I was borrowing hard money on that property. That's costing me like $1,500 a week in interest. But I was like, we have to get it right. Seeing the way that Sloan's Lake went, our Wash Park one came on the market like 60 days later. So we need to make sure it was perfect. What are your buyer's perceptions, or what are your perceptions when you walk into a property, whether it's flipped or not, but where corners are cut? Like what's going through your buyers' minds? How are you coaching them and what are they seeing? Because I don't think some of our audience thinks like, oh, it's still 2021. We can cut corners. You can't do that.
So here's my super honest take on this. Whether it is a $500,000 flip or a $5 million flip or brand new construction, cutting corners is never going to give that flipper the end result that they want. The buyer is going to feel cheap in some way, shape, or form. So when I'm walking through a property, I am always looking for those little details. If the trim doesn't match up on a wall, if the cabinet door doesn't open all the way because there was some measurement that went awry and it wasn't fixed, if the the handles on the cabinets are not properly placed, then it doesn't matter to me if it's a $600,000 flip or it's multi-million dollars. I'm going to tell that buyer, hey, if they're cutting corners on the cosmetic things, on the things that you see in the first 5 minutes of walking into a property, what the hell do you think happened when everything else was taken away? And it's a major red flag. For me, flips can be done so well, and I've helped clients into many a flip that the end result was absolutely glorious. And the flipper took all the time in the world. They paid attention to detail and they put their heart and soul into the project. It doesn't matter how much money they spent on it, but they just really cared about the person that was going to be living in the property. And I think that that is where the disconnect can happen, is that, yes, it's a numbers game. So regardless of how expensive or inexpensive the flip is, if you're walking in and you can see that all of the corners were cut on the cosmetic things that you see in the first 2 minutes, 5 minutes of touring a property, what do you think's happening behind the scenes, behind those walls? What does the plumbing look like? How is the HVAC holding up? Those are the big red flags that I like to point out to my clients, because they're seeing all the beautiful photos and we don't know what kind of structure that property has. Most of the flips that I see are distressed properties, or someone's lived there for a very long time. Maybe it's an estate, and a lot of those basic updates that need to be done in a 70-year-old home haven't been completed because that flipper is putting lipstick on the property and isn't going behind the scenes, isn't doing the things that really, really, truly matter when it comes to someone calling it their home for the next 15 to 30 years.
Yeah. And I think that is such a good point. And actually, I really want our audience to rewind that. I want you to listen to it, because here's how you have to think is I think sometimes we get so myopically focused on what we're thinking about as an investor. And it's like, to your point, like, oh, it needs to be profitable. And sure, it obviously does. But if you cut corners, you just heard a really, really savvy, very successful, very seasoned real estate professional and what they are guiding their client to look for. And that's their job, and that's what they're really good at. So on our side of the table, as people flipping these properties, you have to make that attention to detail. Like even on our last project, we had our contractor do everything in their blue tape walk. We had our project manager do everything. Then I had my real estate agent who's on our team who sold it. They had to do their stuff, and I still wasn't completely satisfied. And so I was there with my 2 teenage girls the night beforehand, and they were annoyed at me, but I was like, get in the car, we're going, we're making sure that it's perfect. And it was like blowing off the front porch to make sure that it was just spotless. And it was scraping a couple little speckles of paint off of the bathroom floor and this was only at 1.25. This wasn't $2 or $3 million property. Mm-hmm. And it worked in that we went our contract immediately. And so again, you guys just rewind, pause, listen to that again. So thank you for sharing that information.
Absolutely. It's little things like putting the proper door stopper on the bottom of your gorgeous glass shower enclosure. It takes 5 minutes and it's $5, and yet your buyers are going to notice those things. And so it's not expensive to do that, but it's worth it. And whenever I see those corners being cut or things not fully complete, then I'm looking at the bigger things, the things like the fascia on the roof line. Did you just paint over it? Is it all rotten underneath? What are my buyers going to call me crying about in 6 months because it's a $50,000 investment for them that they were not planning on, that you cut a corner as a flipper because it didn't make sense for you? And just thinking about it, I always like to think for my clients, and I will say this, whether they're buying a $250,000 condo or a $2.5 million home, is if I were in this price point, what would I want? Like, what would I want a professional to tell me? How would I want to be treated? And that's really the way that I've built my business and the way that I'll continue to build my business. So I think that on the flip side too, is that, whether you're doing a small one or a big one, I know it costs more in that moment and it hurts every day. You just mentioned those dollars, like week by week, it hurts, but you're looking at days on market. You want that thing sold. Going under contract is only step number one.
Right.
You're trying to get that finish line, not just getting a great offer in, because that offer, as we know, can fall apart.
Yeah, really, really fast. That is amazing insight. And I definitely want to touch on another area of your expertise, which is running a team, because we've got a lot of people in our audience that they're running businesses, they're running real estate teams, they're doing multiple different businesses. So you're one of the leaders of the Impact Group. Maybe tell us a little bit about your role with Impact and give us kind of the overall structure of what you guys are doing and what it's like right now.
So we have about 45 agents currently on our team, which is really fun. I was a baby agent. I came over to the team at the beginning of 2019 after having a good successful first year. I closed about 10 deals my first year in the business.
Awesome.
And I realized that I was missing the team environment, not necessarily to get leads from or get business, but to push myself.
Yeah.
So I'm a super competitive person, and joining this team gave me all of the things I was missing. I was listening to a podcast actually this morning with Ed Milet. It's one of my favorite podcasts.
Yeah, I love him.
And he was making a point to say that, of course, we've all heard the 5 people that you spend the most time with are the ones that are influencing you the most, right? And so we know that kind of in the back of our minds. But if you're really looking at the people that you are putting yourself next to in all facets of your life. So when I was walking into the real estate office, I wanted to be next to top producers. I wanted to go next to people that I didn't know what I was capable of because I couldn't see my future. I wasn't being shown the way. So both Ed Milet and Tony Robbins have said, if you want to do something well, go follow someone who's already done it. And that's why I joined the Impact team.
Nice.
And over the last 5 years, we have really worked on cultivating just a culture that is irreplaceable, where it is constant, just mind sharing. And everybody that comes to the team, we have a list of what makes an impactor.
Okay.
Number 1 is collaboration. So what are you willing to collaborate? And then what are you contributing? What do you bring to the table? So we have this incredible group of people who all have some sort of unique skill set. We've got appraisers on the team. We've had inspectors on the team. We've had people who have grown their businesses specifically doing Zillow leads.
Oh, nice.
We've got people that have only ever done a Sphere lead. We have people who are phenomenal at open houses. And then we have agents who would never do an open house. Yeah. One of the other leaders of our team, John Cole, you could not pay him enough money to do an open house.
Right.
And then Dan, our other counterpart, he could go door to door. He could sell you anything. He could sell Ziploc bags,
he could.
and be phenomenal at it.
Yeah.
And so it's just this whole group of people who have these skill sets and these personalities that make you want to show up and hear what they have to say, and everybody shares. We have another agent who is the top of her game at farming.
Oh, cool.
And I don't necessarily want to farm. It's not in my wheelhouse to want to do that. But when I've had a couple of these listings, and now that the market is shifting to where listings are sitting, I think average days on market are running at about 34 days currently. And that is very different than it was 2 years ago. Right. You better believe I'm calling that agent on my team and asking her what her strategies are so that I can then start to farm out that listing to potential buyers. It's not just reverse prospecting anymore to agents. It's, are there buyers out there that maybe didn't even realize this was on the market? They're not looking. How do I get their eyes on it? So it is just, such an amazing group of humans that want to be there for each other, that are also willing to step up in times of need, when someone's going through something difficult, when someone has a baby and can't get out to show properties. We've got an entire Facebook page that's dedicated to what does the team need?
Nice.
And we can put in those requests. So that's been just such a godsend and a blessing that I didn't know I was missing until I was on it. And the last 5 years, we've really grown. We've really, really put an emphasis on the people, not just bringing in anybody that wants to join our team. Yeah. And that's what differentiates us the most, I would say, from your traditional real estate team.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, everybody. So we've been talking with Tabitha about the luxury market, both in her experience, kind of more on the traditional side, and then what we've been doing on the flip side from a luxury perspective. But it's been such a great conversation. We're actually going to cut this episode and we're going to make it into 2. We're going to talk a little bit about, when we come back, the NAR lawsuit settlement, how she's doing things as a team lead, and just some great things that she's getting into. But we want to get you guys a part 2. So check us out and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. If you found value in our insights and stories, let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on social media and be sure to share this episode with friends or colleagues who might benefit. Your feedback and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners like you. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Thanks again to the Elevation Academy for sponsoring today's show. If you're interested in learning more, click the link in the show notes below. And remember, every property tells a story, every deal brings a lesson, Keep reaching for those goals, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and watching Raising the Flipping Bar. Just a basic overall disclaimer is that A, this is not legal advice. B, this is not tax advice. C, this is not financial advice. I hope you get the gist, but I'm obviously not a lawyer, not a CPA. Hell, I'm not even a real estate agent, actually. But in general, we hope you get a ton of value out of this, but there is a bit of a disclaimer. Please consult a professional if you have any questions whatsoever. Thanks for tuning in.